for people who are naive, like I once was, because I grew up in the 80s as don't do drugs, right? And they're all lumped in as one thing. And again, I even go back to cannabis that I'm not a fan of. The research comes out. I still think it's addictive. It has negative, usage where you want it, you have a craving for it. And as of right now, there's no mushrooms that I have personally used or know of other people that creates a craving that you start using for it. So to me, as I state, mushrooms are the most powerful tool that a human can have in their toolbox for self-mastery. And understanding for people who are naive to this, when they're thinking, I'm afraid of my kids getting my handle on this. And, there's back alley drug deals going on selling mushrooms. Talk about the real life safety. When people say safety measures, the real dangers. I mean, I'm not going to willingly say that everybody can have an adverse effect. Somebody can die by drinking too much water. But what does the research really show about the harm and side effects of psilocybin on a even a regular basis? And that's the other thing I want to say is it doesn't create cravings. If anybody uses this medicine or this tool, one massive psychedelic trip evening, all of a sudden the next 2 weeks, you're not going to now be craving it more like a cigarette or alcohol or anything else. No. You're done for a while. So, but
let's look at the
research show.
So the research shows that psilocybin, for example, is non-toxic. The LD50 for psilocybin is like 3 pounds of mushrooms. No one's going to eat 3 pounds of mushrooms in one sitting. I don't even.
God bless them if they did.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what that would even look like. Right, like 3 pounds of dried mushrooms is a lot of mushrooms. No one's going to eat that much. So they're non-toxic. And, there's, like you said earlier, you can drink so much water that you can die. Right. So the LD50 for mushrooms is like 3 pounds for an average body weight.
Well, so break that out. So
a male person.
If people want to do the math, 3 pounds, there's 16 ounces per pound and then 28 grams per ounce. And most people do a psychedelic trip of anywhere from 2 to, you do heroic doses.
2 to 5 grams, 2 to 7 grams.
Yeah. And so
it's a lot of doses.
Fraction amount to be toxic. Yeah. It's minimal, fractional. I want to dive into that a little bit more on two fronts. Going back to, again, let's really educate here what the research is showing around safety. Out of the 2-year research study that happened from decriminalized Colorado or decriminalized Denver that you had to do that was part of that measure, the one most important thing when I watched that city council meeting, when it was presented, the council person asked the adverse effects, like how they wanted to know, okay, how many deaths have occurred to mushrooms since this happened?
To our knowledge, in Denver, no deaths. Nothing's been recorded. There's no hospitalization data either. Now, to be transparent, hospitals don't necessarily record the type of substance a person is under the influence of when they go to the emergency room. However, there have been no recorded deaths in Denver since decriminalization in May of 2019 from the use of psilocybin. Yeah, exactly. And then so they're non-toxic and then they're also non-addictive, right? And this is all based on clinical research. And some people argue that psilocybin, for example, is actually anti-addictive. Like you were saying earlier, a person who has a person who has, I'm actually a good example of that. My last macrodose was back in May of 2021. I haven't gone back since with mother ayahuasca, and with psilocybin. I did a weekend with ayahuasca, and then 2 weeks later I did a 7-gram dose with psilocybin, and haven't gone back. I got enough information in that 2-week time frame, and honestly, getting my ass kicked in both of those sessions that the medicine was telling me, and the mushrooms in particular, like, Kevin, you're welcome back anytime. Please come back. We love having you here. How they talk to us when we're in these deep journeys, right? And the intuition was too is like, hey, you've got this laundry list of things to work on. We recommend working on these things, and then coming back to say hi and spend some time with us. Like that's where I'm at right now. I don't feel like I need to go and have a 5 or 7 gram journey right now because I'm still integrating. And like I think that's really something to emphasize is that in this I like how this is kind of how this is talked about. There's a new friend who I met during the campaign. He talks about, look, like it's 10% preparation for a dose, it's 20% the dose, and then 70% integration. And that's where I'm at right now. I don't feel a need or a desire or a want to go and dissolve my ego right now with a macrodose, because there are things that I'm working on that I know that I can do in my life right now, and I don't feel like I need the medicine to go any deeper at this moment. I do want to say that I do feel like I'm due pretty soon. Like I think I'm at the point now, 20 months later, where I'm like, okay, I'm ready for a weekend with Mother again. I'm ready for a deep dive with psilocybin. But these are
I better be somewhere near around when that happens, Kevin.
These are not the kinds of things where you have your typical craving for these medicines.
Yeah. What I want people to understand that this is different than any other type of drug. People think, again, this is going to be a gateway drug to something.
No.
What I would agree that this is a gateway drug to, it could be a gateway drug to maybe.
It could be a gateway drug to oxygen and learning how to use your breath as a tool, your endogenous psychedelics.
It becomes a gateway drug to self-empowerment. Yeah, it's a gateway drug to learning, to anything else in your life that can become a positive force. Most often you hear, people are on other drugs, and then those drugs destroy lives, where those become a gateway to mushrooms or ayahuasca, which relieves them of that. Very rare. I've never heard of an opportunity where somebody has had transformation on a psychedelic substance, primarily mushrooms, and the next thing you know, now they're smoking crack and doing heroin. It just doesn't happen.
Again, that's where education comes in right now, is that some people, if they're in their party mindset, they just want to go and take these to kind of and that's fine if they want to do that. But like, I like to say that, like you said, tools earlier, I do like to say that these are actually medicines, not implying that a person is sick necessarily, but like these are things that regardless of whether or not you have a depression diagnosis like I had, or you have PTSD, or you have some other thing you're struggling with in your life or not, these medicines can help. They can help with the long-term relief of depression, and then the amount of insight that people can gain from a macrodose is incredible, as long as that integration is there, like for whatever that looks like for a person. Some of the other data that I think really stands out there too is that with Johns Hopkins University, over the course of the past 3 years, they've been conducting the largest observational study of psilocybin ever in the U.S., and the results are astounding. A significant majority of people, according to this study, use psilocybin for healing purposes, for health and mental wellness purposes. They have an intention. They have a safe environment that they use, and they're using these medicines responsibly. And that's powerful to know. And by the way, that study is complete. And so based on that information, outside of regulated settings, we know that most people who use these medicines are doing so in a way that's not only responsible and safe, but also maximizing those therapeutic benefits, because people are taking their health into their own hands right now, because these other tools simply aren't working. These other traditional interventions like therapy, like antidepressants, aren't working for a lot of people. I wouldn't say most people, but a lot of people. And people are taking that, their mental health, that power back into their own hands with these medicines. And we need more of that. It's incredible.
What you just said to Kevin, again, getting people to wrap their mind around this as a medicine against cannabis or anything else. Any other drug that anybody ever takes, it's the complete opposite of what happens with other drugs. Other drugs tend to take you into a life of selfishness, despair, and to a life of self-servingness, and it just goes down a bad rabbit hole of addictions and all kinds of things like that. To what you just said, what psychedelics do and mushrooms is what I want to keep pointing on. That's my own personal experience, is it takes you the other way. It took me from a life of selfishness and self-serving to an understanding of my connection, of my peace, of my connection to our greater connection of all of us as one thing, that my actions indeed, because of mushrooms, turns toward a life of serving myself, not in a selfish way, but serving myself so I could be the best version of me I could be, so that I could then serve others, the earth, and honor the universe in which this was given.